Genesis. Genesis opens with a voice and a world snapping into place, but it doesn't explain everything. Light lands where it should, seas step back, life wakes up, and humans are set in the middle to tend and reflect the one who made it. A serpent sells a shortcut. They grab it, shame crashes in, and Eden locks behind them with a promise planted. One day, a child will crush the thing that bit us. The crack widens Cain and Abel, flood and restart, Babel's tower and scattered tongues. God goes small to go big. Abraham gets a promise under star-thick skies. A son finally laughs into the tent. A knife pauses on a mountain, and a ram shows up. Jacob limps into a new name. Joseph gets sold, rises in Egypt, and feeds the same brothers who betrayed him. The book ends with a coffin in Egypt and a promise that this isn't the end. That is the story you know. But did you ever wonder what was the real meaning behind Genesis? Genesis isn't mainly how to be religious. It's what humans are for. Image-bearing is a vocation. We're wired to mirror God's character into the world. Truth that doesn't twist. Justice that protects. Creativity that cultivates. The fall isn't just broke a rule. It's a quiet coup. We grabbed wisdom on our terms and bent the mirror. That's why trust thins, why work grows thorns, why we hide when we most need help. Sin isn't an alien stain, it's sabotage of purpose. And still, grace moves first. From a promise in the garden to a covenant under the stars, Genesis keeps shocking you with God's initiative. Abraham's story isn't a private spirituality trick. It's a rescue plan for every nation. Blessed to be a blessing is the mission statement. The Moriah moment isn't divine theatrics. It's God prying Abraham's fingers off the gift so he can hold the giver. The Lord will provide becomes a flag on that mountain you'll see again later. The book hands you two lenses for reading the rest of Scripture and your life. First, chaos and order. In the beginning, God tames the deep so life can flourish. Every lie, cheat, or cruelty invites the deep back in. Every kept promise, defended neighbor, and honest ledger partners with God's ordering work. Creation isn't only an origin scene, it's a pattern you either resist or join, daily. Second, exile and homecoming. Adam and Eve step out of the garden, Cain walks east. Jacob flees and limps back. The family settles in Egypt with eyes on Canaan. Exile is more than geography, it's that ache of being far from what you're for. Genesis teaches you to read that ache. It's not just nostalgia, it's a homing signal for God's presence that pushes the whole story forward until presence returns for good. Watch the name theme. Babel tries to make a name. God promises to give one. That's the split of modern life. Hustle for identity or receive a calling. One is constant anxiety, the other is anchored purpose. Joseph models it. He doesn't become Pharaoh to matter. He carries God's wisdom into a secular system and uses power to feed enemies. That's what image-bearing looks like in the wild. Also, the mess isn't a side note, it's the comfort. The patriarchs lie, play favorites, panic, pick fights. God keeps working with them anyway. That's not a pass to be reckless. It's proof your history doesn't cancel your calling. The promised line refuses to die in the detours. It bends. It doesn't break. So what is Genesis asking you to do? You were made to reflect God, not replace Him. When you clutch control, the deep creeps back. When you trust, provision meets you on the mountain. Your name isn't something you stack tall. It's something you receive and then spend for others. And even when choices fracture the story, yours or someone else's, there's a larger hand weaving threads you can't see yet. That's why the book closes with bones packed for a future move. Genesis won't let you settle in Egypt. It trains your hope to expect an exit, a serpent-crushing seed, a homecoming with presence again. Until then, do what image bearers do. Tell the truth, guard the vulnerable, cultivate your patch of earth, and trust the God who keeps turning disaster into doorways. Exodus. Egypt is a machine. Bricks, quotas, no days off. God hears the grind in the groans and moves. Plagues crack Pharaoh's crown. A sea parts like a door on a hinge. Slaves walk out like a nation being born. That's the story you know. But what you don't know is the true meaning underneath the miracles. Exodus isn't just escape, It's a recreation. The plagues aren't random fireworks. They're a slow unmaking of Egypt's fake cosmos darkness over the land, waters turning hostile, life collapsing until God speaks order back in by freeing a people. Genesis made a world. Exodus makes a people for that world. Freedom gets a name. I am. Who? I am. Not a local deity, not a mascot for your side. The God who simply is unborrowed, unbossed. He doesn't introduce a vibe, he introduces himself. When God says, I am, Israel can finally say we are. The blood on the doors? Not superstition. Substitution. A lamb dies and a household lives. That night will echo for centuries, through temple sacrifices, through prophets, all the way to a table where bread breaks and a cup is lifted. Passover is the dress rehearsal. The cross is opening night. They cross the sea and breathe. But God doesn't drop a hammock and say, enjoy. Freedom without formation just breeds a new Egypt. So he drags them to a mountain to teach them how to be human again. 10 words, carved in stone, aimed at loosening their hands from idols and their knees from other people's necks. Law here isn't a cage, it's a spine. It's how rescued people stay free. The golden calf explodes the myth that miracles cure idolatry. You can walk through walls of water and still crave a God you can control. Israel trades the invisible I am for a visible pet and calls it worship. Moses grinds the idol to dust and makes them drink it, because sooner or later, you swallow what you worship. The Bible isn't subtle. Then the part everyone skims. Tabernacle blueprints, curtains, clasps, rings. Why the detail? Because presence is the point. God doesn't just get them out of Egypt, he gets himself into their camp. A tent in the dirt, smoke by day, fire by night, divine nearness with boundaries, so it won't burn them down. That tent is Eden, rebuilt with fabric and gold, pitched in a world that forgot what it felt like to walk with God. Wilderness isn't a punishment, it's school. Daily bread so you learn to gather, not hoard. A pillar moving so you learn to follow, not force. A Sabbath rhythm so you remember you're not a tool. Sabbath is protest, by the way, a weekly no to Pharaoh's endless shift. Rest becomes a weapon. Justice isn't an elective. God folds it into the covenant. Don't crush widows and immigrants. Don't rig scales. Don't take a cloak as collateral overnight when nights get cold. The holy mountain bleeds into the marketplace. If your worship never touches your wallet or your calendar, you built a calf, not a sanctuary. Exodus also teaches mission math. Rescued people, rescue people. Let my people go is only half the sentence. The other half is, so that they may worship me. Freedom has a direction, away from chains, toward presence, out of empire, into service. Saved from something and saved for someone. And then there's Moses, not a superhero, a stuttering exile who keeps dropping excuses. God chooses him anyway and teaches him to intercede to stand in the breach when the people run dumb. At Sinai, Moses argues for mercy and wins, not because God forgot, but because God wants a leader who knows his heart. The I Am loves being reminded of his own promises. So what's Exodus trying to tell you? God breaks real chains, not vibes, systems. He confronts any world that fattens itself on crushed backs. If your faith can't name a pharaoh, it's not Exodus faith. Deliverance comes with directions. Grace isn't allergic to structure. The commands don't compete with love, they guard it. The more freed you are, the more formed you need to be. Idols are convenient and lethal. They promise clarity, control, quick dopamine. They take your gold and give you dust. Smash them early. Smash them often. Presence is the prize. The land will come later. The milk and honey, too. But first, a tent. God in the middle, not at the edge. If he's not in the camp, who cares about Canaan? Sabbath is resistance. In a culture that worships output, resting is how you remember you're a person, not a product. Pharaoh hates days off. Take them anyway. Wilderness is where dependence grows. Manna doesn't store. Pillars don't give ETAs. You learn to wake, gather, trust, one day at a time. That's faith with dust on it. And maybe the line that hangs in the air the longest. I will be your God and you will be my people. Not a contract you negotiated. A covenant, he wrote, in mercy, signed in blood, carried in a tent, fulfilled on a cross, poured out by a spirit who doesn't need a tabernacle because he turned you into one, not a contract you negotiated. A covenant he wrote in mercy, signed in blood, carried in a tent, fulfilled on a cross, poured out by a spirit who doesn't need a tabernacle because he turned you into one. Exodus isn't just long ago, over there. It's every time God humiliates a false god, pulls someone out of a machine, gives them a name, teaches them a rhythm, and sets up his presence right in the middle of their mess. If you've heard him say, "Let them go," the next line is already waiting. So they can walk with me. Leviticus. You probably know the headlines: tents in the desert, a brand new nation, and then pages of sacrifices, priest outfits, skin checks, mold inspections, feast calendars. Most people hit Leviticus and bail, but this isn't filler. It's God moving in and teaching a people how not to burn down under his nearness. But did you notice the real meaning under the manuals? Leviticus is what happens when holy moves next door. Exodus ends with glory filling the tabernacle like thunder in a tent. That's beautiful and dangerous. Proximity needs boundaries, or closeness becomes casualty. Leviticus is God saying, "I want to stay. Here's how you live with me in the middle." Sacrifices aren't ancient superstition. They're mercy in a language people understood. Blood is life. Sin leaks death. The offerings are God's way to mop up the spill so the camp doesn't drown in it. Burnt, grain, peace, sin, guilt, each one a different facet. Surrender. Thanks. Fellowship. Cleanup. Restitution. Worship isn't one note, it's a whole playlist. Priests stand in the gap with washed hands and oiled heads, because representing the people before God isn't a side hustle. And then Nadab and Abihu crash the story: strange fire, casual hearts, instant fallout. It's not God being touchy, it's high voltage mishandled. Holiness isn't a mood. Treat it like a game, and someone gets shocked. Clean and unclean gets weird until you see the point. It's not, ew, cooties. It's training. Death, disease, decay, anything that smells like the curse doesn't waltz into the holy zone. The people learn to tell the difference between life and death, wholeness and fracture. The categories are a constant nudge. Choose life. Then the center of the whole book, the Day of Atonement. One day, one priest, one room, 2 goats. Blood sprinkled where glory sits. 1 goat for the sanctuary, clean the hot spot so presence stays. 1 goat for the people, hands on head, sins confessed, sent into the wild. That second goat carries the weight out of camp like a walking reset. Substitution and removal, covered and carried away. If you're looking for a preview of the cross, the camera lingers here. Holiness code lands it in real life. Don't just bring offerings, bring your character. No cheating scales, no predatory rent. Don't harvest to the edges. Leave the margins for the poor and the stranger. Don't curse the deaf or trip the blind. Don't hate your brother in your heart. And then, the line Jesus will quote later, like a heartbeat. Love your neighbor as yourself. Holiness isn't about hiding from people. It's about treating people the way God treats you. Sexual ethics show up not as random rules, but as covenant integrity. Faithfulness in the bedroom mirrors faithfulness to God. Exploitation, incest, adultery, violence. God calls it defilement because it tears at the fabric of trust and turns bodies into battlegrounds. Leviticus isn't prudish, it's protective. Bodies matter because people matter, because presence matters. Time gets holy too. Sabbaths, feasts, years. You don't grind 7 days straight in Pharaoh's world anymore. Rest is built in. Passover remembers rescue. First fruits practices gratitude. Day of Atonement confronts sin. Tabernacles teaches joy in the journey. God sanctifies the calendar so you don't drift into thinking your life is just tasks. Every few weeks he rings a bell and says, "Remember." And then the big swing. The land gets a Sabbath. Every 7th year, fields lie fallow. Every 50th, Jubilee debts released, slaves freed, lost plots restored. That's not utopian fanfic. That's an economy that remembers people over profit. Leviticus drags justice out of the sanctuary and plants it in soil and spreadsheets. Why all the detail? Because love lives in detail. Be holy, for I am holy. isn't be weird. It's be whole, like me. God is life, fullness, faithful presence. Holiness is becoming a people shaped by that reality, head to toe, pantry to paycheck, bedroom to business. So what's Leviticus trying to explain to you? Presence is the point and the problem. We were made for God with us, but sin makes that unsafe. Atonement isn't God finally deciding to be nice. It's God making a way to stay near without lying about what breaks us. Sin is more than guilt, it's contamination. It stains spaces, relationships, rhythms. That's why confession and repair show up together. You don't just say, sorry, you make it right. Leviticus teaches a reflex. When harm happens, clean it up and restore what was lost. Holiness is not a church outfit, it's a way of being human. Honest scales, open margins, kind speech, sexual integrity, compassion for outsiders. You can memorize the offerings and miss God if your neighbor still goes hungry. Worship is embodied. Smoke, bread, oil, seasons, money, meals. God isn't after a brain-only faith or a feelings-only faith. He wants your calendar, your kitchen, your closet, your contracts. If he's in the camp, he touches everything. Boundaries are gifts, not cages. The clean, unclean lines teach discernment. Not everything is neutral. Some things pull you toward life, some drag you toward death. Wisdom is learning which is which and choosing accordingly. Rest is resistance, again. Sabbath for people, for animals, for land. Leviticus dares you to believe the world keeps spinning when you stop. Pharaoh taught panic. God teaches trust. And quietly, behind the curtains and incense, Leviticus is building your appetite for a better priest, a better sacrifice, a better day than once a year. The system works because God is kind, but it also whispers, there's a simpler, deeper way coming. When that day arrives, the veil won't just be respected, it'll rip. If Genesis is the why and Exodus is the rescue, Leviticus is the how you live with the rescuer. It refuses to let God be a weekend hobby. It insists he be center camp. Every day, every room, every breath. Holiness isn't distance. It's nearness that doesn't destroy you. And that's the gift Leviticus keeps handing to anyone brave enough to keep turning the pages. Revelation. You already know the big beats. Strange visions, beasts and bowls, a dragon, a city of gold. John's on Patmos, exiled, when heaven rips the curtain and shows him what's really running the world. 7 letters read the churches like a doctor's chart, love fading here, compromise there, courage holding in pockets. Then the camera zooms out. Thrones, thunder, a scroll sealed tight. The Lamb slain, alive, steps forward, and the room explodes in worship. Seals crack, trumpets blare, bowls pour, Babylon flexes. The beast roars, the dragon rages. And then, against all that noise, a wedding city descends. No more death, no more night, the end that feels like a beginning. Here's what most people miss. Revelation isn't trying to turn you into a timeline expert. It's trying to fix your eyesight. It's an unveiling of Jesus more than a cheat sheet for dates. Every scene keeps dragging him back to the center, so you'll stop giving the center to fear, to empire, to headlines. The lion shows up as a lamb. Power looks like a scar. Victory looks like faithfulness under pressure. That's the twist that keeps flipping the story right side up. Those monsters aren't there so you can play guess the politician. They're there to help you recognize patterns. The dragon is the real enemy, the accuser behind the lies. The beast is any empire that wants worship, promising safety if you'll just kneel. The false prophet is the PR machine that makes the beast look holy. Babylon is the glittering marketplace that sells souls and calls greed a virtue. Different names in different centuries. Same playbook: terror, seduction, and spin. The mark and the seal are about allegiance more than microchips. Head and hand what you believe, what you do. The Spirit's seal says you belong to the Lamb. The beast's mark says you're on Team Babylon. Numbers work the same way. 7 is wholeness, 12 is God's people, 1,000 is a ton. The 144,000 is the full team, not a tiny club with a velvet rope. Revelation isn't trying to help you count to God. It's trying to help you see that no one he seals gets lost in the storm. Watch what worship does. Every time the world shakes, heaven sings not as escapism, as resistance. When the Lamb is praised, the beast loses oxygen. That's why the vision keeps cutting away from chaos to choirs. It's training your reflex. When pressure rises, lift your eyes. The throne hasn't moved. And overcome, that word keeps beating like a drum. They don't overcome by outbrooding the beast. Revelation 12 spells it out. The Lamb's blood, their honest testimony, and a loyalty that doesn't cave even when it hurts. In plain talk, courage anchored in grace, truth spoken out loud, faithfulness without the fine print. The judgments aren't jump scares, they're exposure. God keeps pulling Babylon's mask off to show what her luxury costs the poor, what her idols demand from the vulnerable, what her parties hide. The bowls aren't tantrums, they're God saying, enough, to systems that grind people down. And that final city, New Jerusalem, changes the ending. Heaven doesn't yank us away. Heaven comes down. A garden folds into a city. Creation is healed, culture is redeemed, nations bring their best without the curse baked in. There's no temple because God isn't behind a curtain anymore. The river runs down the main street. The tree of life feeds the nations. Not clouds and harps, presence and home. So what is Revelation actually doing to you while you read it? It's forcing a choice of allegiance. You can't flirt with Babylon all week and sing lamb songs on Sunday and call it fine. It's teaching you that worship shapes courage, whatever you behold will disciple you, so let the throne room be louder than the news cycle. It's showing you witness beats violence, the Lamb wins by love that bleeds, and his people look like him or they're not his people. It's reminding you, empires come and go. Rome bragged it was eternal, and it isn't, so don't mortgage your soul to a logo that won't survive a century. It's telling you judgment is mercy for the oppressed. God will say stop to the machines that chew people up. And it's giving you a concrete hope, a city, a king, a face-to-face future where tears are wiped, not ignored, and the curse is reversed, not managed. If you want a perfect chart, Revelation won't give it. If you want a backbone and a horizon, it will. Keep the testimony of Jesus. Keep the commandments of God. Speak about him without editing. Live like him without loopholes. Hold fast. Lift your head. The Lamb has opened what no one else could open. The end isn't dangling by a thread, it's held by scars. Tell me in the comments which book hit you hardest today. And if you want more content that doesn't skip the hard truths, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next one.